Hello everyone, Adrian here. Well, today I'm going to have a little bit different kind of a video. I'm not ordering out food, I'm not actually baking with you. I'm just going to be talking to you about some things going on in my life and some things that I think are important to keep in mind. So, um, first of all, in terms of what's going on in my life, is a couple weeks ago, I was laid off from my day job, my primary job. So I am currently unemployed. Um, Fortunately, this is not like an immediate emergency for me. I um, have a little bit of resources to fall back on to get me through, at least several months before I find another job, which is good because there's a lot of um, crazy things going on in the world over the last few months. And so I wanted to talk to you about my attitude about being prepared. And first of all, I wanted to point out to you that I have a blog for what I did as an experiment back in January, back when I was fully employed and before a lot of the crazy things of this year started happening. I will link the blog in the description below. But basically, what I did was that for the month of January, I decided that I was not going to buy anything aside from, sort of my regular um, expenses. I was still paying my utilities, I was still paying my mortgage, things like insurance and things like that had been paid. And then to prepare for that, I had filled up my uh, tank of my car with gas. I had filled up my public transportation card so that I was prepared for some of these different things that I knew would well come up during the month. Now, I also had a stock of groceries, and I had a stock of health and beauty aids, um, any sort of medical things that I thought I might need that might come up for the month. All of this were things that I had in my home already going into this month, and I was going to live just on what I already had, not bringing anything new into the house, not ordering out dinner, not ordering from Amazon, not going to the grocery store or the pharmacy or any of these things. It was a test of my own preparedness for things that might come along. So that was the month of January 2020. And I learned a number of different things. I learned a few things that I went through more quickly than I realized. So things that I realized that I probably need to stock up on a little bit more. And I realized, some of the things that I was doing right. I was very well prepared for a lot of different things. Um, so at the time, what I was envisioning as potential scenarios, um, strangely enough, a lot of these things ended up coming to pass here in 2020. Um, at the time that I wrote my blog at the very end of January, reflecting on what had happened, I was aware that COVID-19 had appeared in China, that Wuhan had already been essentially shut down. People were quarantined in their homes. It was geographically very isolated at the time. Um, in a little bit over a month, um, those cases were here in the United States. There were some in the Chicago area, and by mid March, um, we were in lockdowns ourselves with stay at home orders, quarantines, all non essential businesses being shut down. Um, there were already runs on certain products in the stores, Famously, toilet paper was one of them. One of the first things that there were shortages of, where the supply chains were not keeping up with the demand for domestic toilet paper. Um, there were shortages of cleaning products and some other staple foods. Um, Even now, things like rice and some other staples are in fairly short supply. I mean, you can get them. They cost more. They're still cheap. You know, rice is a cheap food. There's shortages of meat, which of course I'm not particularly concerned with myself. That's not something that I consider a necessity. It's not a part of my life. So that particular item I'm not particularly concerned with. But there have always been supplies of food in the grocery stores, even though there's been extra hassles and always not the exact product that you might want. But um, on top of that, now we had um, this explosion of civil unrest, which is the result of ongoing inequality, racial inequality in this country. It's something that has this problem of African American people not being treated fairly by the police, and often that resulting in the death of people who are either completely innocent of whatever they're accused of, or who are being accosted for extremely minor crimes, and African American people end up dying in police custody. So this is a problem that's been going on for years, decades, centuries. So this is we had the George Floyd incident, which was recorded on camera and was an incident that sparked protests and some violent, you know, looting, burning, arson, some other things in various cities. A little bit of that in Chicago, not really affecting my neighborhood directly, but it was something that impacted the city quite significantly. There were shutdowns for the Loop, which is the central business district downtown. There were shutdowns in public transportation. Um, there, some of these were declared on very short notice, so people were stranded in areas. Um, and of course, there were curfews, so just people were not supposed to be out after 9 p.m. at all, unless you were an essential worker, and you could provide some evidence to show that. So those are the sort of broad things. Um, in my own life, then of course, as I said, I experienced a job loss in May, and also, there's been some home repair issues that have come up. I live in a condo building, so there's some shared facilities, and I had some maintenance issues that were affecting the units upstairs for me that unfortunately, as they say, it flows downhill. So I had to deal with it. And so that was, just some other personal unpleasantness here. So, in addition, there's the personal worries about various friends and family members who are in fragile health, and whether they were potentially in trouble with the COVID-19 spread, and just a lot of other things that were worries, and things that seem to be kind of either temporarily or permanently kind of falling apart, our systems, our support systems. So the bottom line is that with everything that's going on, both big picture and the little picture within the walls of my own home, um, I'm really, really glad that I am prepared for things. I'm prepared for a scenario where I don't need to leave my house for, like a month at a time. I have enough food. I have enough, the basic health and beauty products, things like this, to get me through with a fairly normal, stable lifestyle. Um, and I have a bit of money saved. I know, you can always say, it would be better if I had more money saved than I do, but there's something there to get me through the tough times because, here we are. I'm unemployed. There's a super high unemployment rate at the moment because of the coronavirus disruption to the economy, and just there's so many things going on. So um, that's all that I wanted to convey to you is that um, I want to encourage you to take that attitude of trying to think about what is a realistic scenario that you might face. What are the disasters that may come along? Do you live in an area that's prone to hurricanes or earthquakes? Um, do you live in an area that has wildfires, the potential for long-term power outages? Um, Around here we have tornadoes, we have windstorms, we have winters that can sometimes be really severe, snowstorms that can get you just buried for a long period of time. And, you know, are you ready? Do you have the resources to get through this um, on your own without, um, being one of the people out there panic buying at the last minute? Um, because, that doesn't help. If you can stay out of the fray of the people in long lines, of the people, clearing off the shelves of the grocery stores, you know, when they're getting news of some impending crisis. If you already have that in your home, then that makes your life a lot easier. So I just want to encourage you to think about that. What are the realistic scenarios? And maybe, some of these scenarios that have been happening in the last year are things that we haven't even really been thinking about. They're not on anyone's radar. So, stretch your mind just a little bit further. What are the likely things that might happen? And then what are the things that are sort of, a step or two less likely, but possible? Um, and what have I done? What resources do I have at hand that can get me through that without depending on someone else, or if there are government resources, leaving those for the people who are truly needy and in a bind, so that we can support ourselves and therefore help the general situation. So, those are my thoughts for today. Not very cheerful or upbeat, um, but I just wanted to share those with you. So, if you like this video, then please do hit a thumbs up. Please do check out my blog post, which I posted below. Share this with anyone who you think might be interested. And of course, subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Bye.